Rick Steves has spent 100 days a year for the last 30 years exploring the wonders of Europe and enjoying its diverse cultures. The insights he's discovered and shared have made him America's expert on European travel. In this special, Rick starts back where he grew up, the beautiful Pacific Northwest. With its magnificent natural scenery, Washington State is where his passion for Europe meets his love of home. Travelers know that wherever people live, they're proud of their identity and their culture. It was in this small community of Edmonds, just north of Seattle, where Rick's love affair with Europe began. And it was all because of music. As the son of a piano importer, he traveled with his family to the factories in Europe and developed a passion for both traveling in and teaching about Europe. Tonight, Rick takes us on a musical journey that starts at home and then meanders through Europe by way of its most beloved music. Late 19th century romantic favorites that stir patriotic hearts across the continent. In this program, we learn that Americans and Europeans alike express pride in their unique cultures and love for their homeland through their music. Join Rick Steves for Europe, a Symphonic Journey. Tonight's performance comes to you from the Edmonds Center for the Arts and is performed by the Cascade Symphony Orchestra with conductor Michael Mirapolsky.
Please welcome Rick Steves.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. This is my hometown orchestra, and like community orchestras all over the United States, it's a group of volunteer music lovers who come together to bring live classical music to our neighborhoods. Let's show our appreciation to the Cascade Symphony Orchestra and to community orchestras all over our country for their contribution to the arts. Tonight's program is a symphonic journey, touching down in 7 different countries. And with the help of video and music, we'll gain an appreciation for how 19th century Europe helped shape the beautiful world that we live in today. The theme of the concert is Romanticism and nationalism. These were the isms of the 19th century. And something fundamental to both of these isms is that yearning for freedom. You know, we all want to be free, don't we? We want to be free from external oppression. We want to be free from tyrants and kings. And we want to be free to be individuals, to live creative and fulfilling lives. Nearly all the music we'll hear today is from about the same generation, from the late 1800s, from the Romantic Age. And this music championed national causes, and it also supported this exciting notion of common people finally taking the reins in their society. Now, this is a tour of Europe, but it's going to start in the United States. That's because this next piece celebrates the accomplishments of our revolution, the first great democratic revolution, which in so many ways inspired the flourishing of freedom throughout 19th century Europe. So let's rise now for our national anthem. Listening to that, I enjoyed patriotic goosebumps, and I imagine you did too. And it's important to remember that people all over the world enjoy a similar emotional kick when they hear music that celebrates their culture. In tonight's program, we'll be enjoying romantic music from a time when romantic music stoked the national pride of countries all over Europe, from Norway to Italy, from England to the Czech Republic. We'll start in Austria with a Habsburg waltz. You know, the Habsburgs were really the energy and the elegance of the day, and in the 1860s, it was the cultural peak of that empire, and the waltz was all the craze. The Habsburgs ruled a vast empire, and they were great patrons of the arts. That's why Mozart and Beethoven and Strauss and all these great composers went to Vienna to create all that beautiful music. Strauss was the heartthrob of the Romantic age in Vienna. With his violin, he could whip up the crowds into a frenzy, and he helped create that waltz craze. This piece gives us a sense of the pride and the joy of Vienna. It is by Johann Strauss Jr., his #1 hit of 1867, on the beautiful Blue Danube. For this next piece, we sail up the Danube into Germany. You know, 150 years ago, Germany wasn't there. It was a bunch of little German-speaking states with a dream for German nationalism, for German unity. And remember, in the 19th century, all over Europe, national groups like this were coalescing, and Romantic music supported them. In 1871, that grab bag of little German-speaking fiefdoms and dukedoms finally became the Germany we know today. And at that time, the Romantic composer Richard Wagner was in his prime. Wagner was a political radical. He was a nonconformist, an individual's individual, kind of the quintessential Romantic. And he's a reminder that Romanticism was about more than rising nations. It was also championing personal freedoms and individualism. This next piece is from an opera by Wagner, Die Meistersinger. It's the story of a common man overcoming the tyranny of tradition to win his lady love. Up now, Wagner's overture to Die Meistersinger. Next, we hear a piece from the Czech Republic. The 19th century was a time of national awakenings. All over Europe, from Finland to Bulgaria, little national groups were on the rise. The Czechs were one of these, and they struggled heroically, surrounded by bigger neighbors, Austrian Habsburgs, Germans, and Russians. Now, Romantic music championed both the causes of these people, and it did it with art and it did it with music. In the Romantic age, for the Czech people, Smetana was a favorite. This piece is named for the most important river in the Czech Republic. It flows and it connects the culture like a thread, and it also helped preserve the identity, the culture, and the language of the Czech people amid those bigger neighbors. The piece is like a landscape portrait, and when you listen to the music, you get caught up in the melody and you almost flow through the forests, through the villages, and finally into the capital city of Prague. And at the same time, the music evokes the persistent and the heroic struggle of the Czech people. To this day, Czechs get a lump in their throat when they hear Smetana's hauntingly beautiful melody, the Moldau. Our next piece is from Italy, and it evokes the struggles of the Italian-speaking states as they set their sights on independence. Remember, before 1870, like Germany, Italy was just a bunch of little states surrounded by mightier states that really didn't want to make room for a new country on the map. For Italian nationalists, romantic music served as a bugle call on the battlefield. And their favorite music was opera. Melodramatic, bombastic, it just seemed to fit a country that expresses itself with such emotion. The very most popular opera composer was Giuseppe Verdi. His operas were the rage. People would fill the opera houses, they'd stand on their seats, and together they'd sing the dramatic Verdi arias, as if raising their voices in unison for Italian statehood. This next piece was written in 1871, the same year that Italy was united. It's from the Verdi opera Aida. While it's set in ancient Egypt, when you listen to it, the pharaoh could almost be a stand-in for the triumphant king of a newly united Italy. Up next, from Verdi's Aida, the Triumphal March. Next, we travel to England. This piece captures the grandeur of what was Europe's first global superpower. At the end of the 19th century, Queen Victoria ruled a quarter of the planet. Her empire was famously the empire upon which the sun never set, humming with newfangled inventions from the industrial age, with a middle class that was educated, prosperous, and on the rise. This next piece is Pomp and Circumstance by Sir Edward Elgar, and it seems to provide a fitting sort of soundtrack for the confidence that was Britain's at the dawn of the 20th century. We know this piece mostly because we use it at commencement ceremonies to celebrate educational triumphs. But if you happen to be ruling a grand empire or bushwhacking a brave new future for the common man, this piece works for other triumphs as well. Let's listen to the regal sounds of Elgar's Pomp and Circumstance. Next, we travel north to Norway and a piece by Edvard Grieg. In the 19th century, Norway was chafing under the thumb of Sweden. And you know Norwegians have a distinct need to be Norwegian, apart from Sweden. The cultural capital during this period was Bergen, way out in the west in fjord country. And the great writers and artists and musicians gathered there to be inspired by the natural beauty. Part of Romanticism and part of nationalism is a love of nature. And Norwegians seeking freedom found inspiration in the awesome beauty of their homeland. Grieg wrote this piece to accompany the play Peer Gynt. Peer Gynt was kind of a Norwegian Huck Finn, whose misadventures were set mostly in scenic Norway. This piece evokes the beauty of Norwegian fjord country and the pride Norwegians feel for their way of life and for the beautiful corner of the world they call home. Let's listen to Morning from Peer Gynt by Edvard Grieg from Norway. No tour of Europe, musical or otherwise, is complete without a stop in France, home of the Enlightenment, the French Revolution, and in a lot of ways, the birthplace of modern Europe. In the 19th century, France already had its independence. Its struggle was a domestic one between the haves and the have-nots, between royals and aristocrats and peasants, between elites and commoners. Through its revolutions, and they had several, the French led the call in Europe for the end of the old regime notion of divine monarchs. Until then, most people just accepted the notion that some people were born, ordained by God to be rulers, and the vast majority were born to be ruled. The revolutionary slogan of the day was liberty, equality, and fraternity. And this slogan inspired those who longed for freedom all over romantic 19th century Europe. And when they sang that slogan, it was more than just nation building. It celebrated personal freedoms and the notion of government by, for, and of the people. This piece is typical of 19th century French romantic music. And when we listen to it, we can almost hear the rabble gathering in the streets and chanting liberté, égalité, fraternité, and of course, Vive la France. This is an opera by Berlioz, written in the 1850s, the Trojan March. Enjoying this music, I'm reminded that while every nation has its unique struggles, one thing they all have in common is that fundamental yearning for freedom. And music can express and empower that basic human emotion. You know, in so many ways, the 19th century laid the groundwork for the freedoms that we enjoy today in the 21st century. And that passion for freedom is still strong in Europe. Of course, the big news in our generation is the gradual integration of that long bickering continent into a peaceful union. And while it's tough to get all those proud nations to do anything at the same time, their motto is united in diversity. And one thing they do very well together is embrace the ideals of their anthem. This last piece was conceived in the revolutionary spirit of the 19th century and set to a poem about universal brotherhood. It's an anthem, relevant today as it was when Beethoven set pen to paper, calling all men to brotherhood, to celebrate freedom, and to be united joyfully in their diversity. As we go to this last piece, I'd like to thank you all for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed our symphonic journey. Now, let's finish with the official anthem of the European Union, Beethoven's Ode to Joy.